All set, Cheryl? All right, she's on mute, but I'm sure she got it started. Today we have ergonomic remote workstation setup with Sean Baxter, our ergonomist from the Trust. Sean goes out and does a tremendous amount of functional job descriptions and ergonomic assessments for our members. You know, mostly a lot of you have been working with him in the school environments. He also does a lot of CPI, safety care, and different things around human violence with students. Today he's going to take us through the workstation setup from an ergonomic standpoint, as all of us are thrust into our home environments and have to make do with what we have for tables, chairs, mouse, keyboard setup. So Sean, I'll let you take it away and enjoy the training, everyone. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Thank you for the great introduction. Good morning, everybody. This is very different, obviously. When I see you, it's usually as part of a safety meeting or one-to-one if I'm out doing assessments. So for me, this is very different in terms of doing a training via Zoom. I actually feel a little bit more nervous doing it this way than I would if I stood in front of this large auditorium with all of you, and so I can see you. But it is what it is, given the new norm that we're working in. Last night, I was really trying to think about how do I launch? Where do I begin? It's so much easier when I see the audience and I can kind of hello and welcome everybody and start kind of thinking my process that way than this kind of artificial way of doing it. But what I reflected on was March. And in particular, I remember March 13th, because obviously it was Friday, March 13th, but that's when the governor indicated that the schools were going to close and they were going to do an early April vacation because of what was starting this COVID-19 process. And so the schools were bumping up their April vacation. The schools kind of handled this so well as far as remote learning and the technology that's behind it. So segue, that was Friday the 13th. Now we're dealing with Monday the 16th. And I think some of the workplaces started to figure, well, all right, what are you going to do about this? How are we going to handle this? And I can only speak for my personal reaction, is the beginning of that work week was very unsettling. I didn't really know, nobody really knew what was going to happen. And then I do recall that decisions were made that we're going to transition and work remotely, which I totally understood. I gathered the information that I had at that point in time, what I thought was pertinent, because to be quite honest with you and very frank, I thought it was going to be about 2 weeks. I thought maybe, you know, we'd work through the school vacation and then maybe another week, no more than that third week after that. Well, that didn't happen, obviously. And so that second week, which would have been Monday the 16th, Tuesday the 17th, besides the world started to change, another thing happened. Tuesday was St. Patrick's Day. And so I'm going to steal something from Marianne Struble, who I think is amazing. She has this thing about St. Patrick's Day is another high holiday. It's a holy day. So for me, there's Christmas, there's Easter, and then there's St. Patrick's Day. Well, Tuesday the 17th is St. Patrick's Day. And not only is we're not being able to go to Newport, we're not being able to celebrate, do normative things like we used to. Tom Brady decides to leave the Patriots and become a pirate down in Tampa Bay. So it's like the world is ending. I don't know what's going on. But now we're at this point we have to kind of transition and figure out what to do. We have to kind of work remotely. So gather my stuff and come home. When I come home, I realize, I start thinking, okay, this is the situation I'm in. I have to deal with the situation. I'm not set up to work from home per se. And if I do, I'm set up to work home for very short bouts, to kind of organize myself, to get in the car. I live in my car, all my tools, all my equipment is in the car, and I'm on the road to see you guys. So when I can't do that, I have to stop thinking and say, okay, this is happening now. How do I transition my work environment from my cubicle, you know, up in East Providence to here? And then I tried to think positive. I said, what's some of the positive things? First and foremost, the commute from the bedroom to the bathroom is awesome. I don't have to wait at the red light at West Arlington Route 4 forever. I don't have to do any kind of merge onto 95 North. I don't have to wait for traffic where Jefferson Boulevard merges in. I don't have to hear about it roll over on Thurbus Avenue. I don't have to hear about 195 backed up to the state line. I have a really nice commute. I go right to that bathroom, I head right over here, and I decided to set my workstation up at my kitchen table. I don't know where you set your workstation up. Everybody who's watching this right now, you could have decided any different area and you could switch throughout the course of the day, which is fine. But it really lends itself to once you've made your decision, and obviously others in power have made more decisions that have impacted our lives. And these decisions are, it's not 1 week, 2 week, 3 week. I wrote this memo, the very first email I sent out is dated March 19th. And it's really reflective. It's 2 days after the the other high holiday there, St. Patty's. It's that Thursday, recognizing this really is only going to be a couple of weeks. Well, it's May 19th. And now we're still talking about maybe coming back to work the end of May, beginning of June, maybe in some kind of staged format. We don't know how it's going to impact us at the Trust. How is it going to impact city halls, town halls, municipal buildings? How is this all going to be phased in? What percent of the workers are going to come back physically? What percent of the workers are really going to kind of stay more remote? 60% remote, 40% internal. We don't really know. Totally uncharted waters. But my goal this morning in talking to you is to try to take a look at whatever you've decided. Look at the area from a 10,000 foot perspective. We'll try to problem solve ways to make it better. It's not going to be perfect because none of this was constructed with the concept of sitting for 6 hours at least at a station that's now your office, okay? It was designed for me to sit at this table with my family for special events, nightly meals or whatever, and furniture that was fabricated for the purpose of doing something and then getting up and moving away. It's not designed or fabricated for the purpose of sitting here for multiple hours doing multiple tasks. So if you're keeping score right now, the environment just scored a goal. It's 1-0. The human is 0. I now have to adapt to my environment because this stuff's not going to change. How do I improve my position, my posture, my relationship with a surface that's not going to change? So my goal this morning is to show you the original, to show you what I did to kind of pep it up a bit. Then we're going to pan over and show you like the ergonomically correct workstation, which is actually still fabricated from a card table and makeshift kind of arrangement. And then we're going to blow Varidesk out of the water because those of you who might have a breakfast area or a raised surface, we can kind of do a jerry-rig situation where we can go a sit-stand station and just kind of transition as needed. So that's our goal this morning. If you think of something, obviously send it into the chat for questions. I'll try to address them at the end. Please remember that I do have my working kind of PowerPoint presentation. It will be sent to you. But those of you who know me know I'm very ad hoc. I kind of go, I don't follow the script. So the technical information that we really want to convey to you, it's definitely in the PowerPoint. We will get it to you. The stretch cards that I'm going to review, if you need more, we will get them to you. The schematic in terms of the perfect workstation or as close as you can get it. If you need it, we can get it for you. My goal is just to have a conversation with you about how we can jerry-rig what we have and just transition this eventual new norm of whatever that's going to be. So to start with, whenever I do an ergonomic assessment, I always kind of come out and I look at that person at the workstation and I really do start with the floor and I work my way up. So what I want to do is to show you my current work situation. First and foremost, I left this in on purpose, okay? This is the power cord to my laptop. This is a trip hazard, okay? I only did that for demonstration purposes. I do not have it on when I'm working, unless I have a low battery indicator that's on. So this bad boy is getting out of the way so I don't trip on it. Next thing I look at is my floor surface, okay? Obviously, I'm on a rugged surface, but notice there's a transition between a rugged surface and a hardwood floor, okay? I'm not in an office where it's all rug, or it's all tile, or it's all cement. There's a change or variance in flooring. That's something you need to be aware of. The other thing I want to show you is this is my good old-fashioned kitchen chair. Again, truth be told, those of you that know me, I'm the most honest person in the world. This actually is our original dining room set that we got. October is our 30th wedding anniversary. So if you look at the chair, these chairs are designed for very short bouts of sitting. Okay, they are not really comfortable. To be very honest with you, it's not comfortable. It's not the best. A couple hours, I need to get going. But the end cap chair, I picked this because I like the arms. I could have picked the middle chairs with no arms. It's when I come out to the site visit and people ask me, Sean, what chair should I get? Should I get arms? Should I don't get arms? It's really a preference. I'm going to go over the official technical ergonomic things as far as chairs in a second. But this chair has a wide pan, okay? It even has a dovetailed or kind of like a etched out spot for your ischial tuberosities. That's your butt bones. So your butt bones sitting on a concave surface, not really comfortable. When you sit in the chair, again, I'm a leaner, so I kind of do one of these, or I kind of do one of those, okay? Again, other people have perfect posture and they don't do that. But one thing I do want to show you, and I have Sammy's spine here. Sammy's going to help us kind of show this. This is the other chair. Has no arms. So the end cap chairs have arms. I picked that chair. I like that. This doesn't. Notice Sammy has his tie on for the event and his face mask. He's protected. But what I want you to really, really focus on is the height of this chair. This chair measures from floor to the front, just shy of 18 inches. From the floor to the back, 16 inches, 16.25. So what does that tell you? This chair has a negative slope. It's arched backwards. It's designed for a person to sit comfortably at a kitchen table and to reach forward to feed your face, and then to sit back and relax and have a conversation. It is not designed to put you in a neutral posture or a good seated position. What actually happens with certain chairs, depending on the chair that you've picked, it pushes your spine in your pelvis into what's called a posterior pelvic tilt. And that's what that is. It's a rounding. It's almost like an arched, what actually happens when you're in a posterior pelvic tilt. Let me get Sammy out of the way. You now have to interact with your device. And if you don't offset that in some way, you go into a rounded kyphotic position. Because your pelvis, your hips are already tilted back. Gravity is pulling you back. You have to overcome that, push yourself forward, and then reach for the home row to start doing your laptop work, okay? Good for a half hour, maybe an hour. If it's about 11 o'clock, I haven't gotten up and done anything about this, I'm gonna start having some discomfort. So what did I do? This is what I recommend in terms of how do you fix, simplistically, very basic kinds of fixes. Went out and I have a wedge. This actually was stolen from my mother's car because she's vertically challenged. But what I like about it is see the differential in the wedge. So because the chair already has a negative slope, I can make up the difference and offset that in terms of my pelvis by lifting the back side of that chair by using a wedge. If you have some other device or a pillow or several pillows or whatever that works, you just have to kind of investigate a good old fashioned when the kids were little and you went to watch them in the soccer stadium or a football game or whatever, you brought something to sit on, maybe that'll work here. But you're trying to neutralize your pelvis. So that was not good enough. I went to phase 2. The first pillow. First pillow goes onto the wedge. That's helping because now I'm seated upright. My pelvis, excuse me, has now come from a posterior tilt to more of a neutral position or posture. Now, how do I support the lumbar part of my back? That's so important. Pillow number 2, or a beach towel. Anything that works, or an old sweater, or something you can stuff back behind you. Get that into position. Now I'm getting into position. Notice the differential, okay? So I said, I start with the floor and I work my way up. A really good ergonomic position in terms of neutral position or posture is what's called the 90-90-90 rule. 90 degrees at your ankles, so your feet are flat on the floor. 90 degrees at your knees. The relationship between your knees and your hips are parallel, 90 degrees at your hips. Your hands should come right across and naturally fall on top of the home row of whatever you're using. Now you notice I have an upward slope. There's a 5 to 10 degree differential. If I take these devices off, if I take the pillow, the wedge off, and I go down, that angle has been increased. I've at least decreased that angle. So 90, 90, 90, hands across. Now, the device, I'm talking about a laptop. That's what I have. Some of you may have the traditional desktop. You may actually have a work desk. You may have a good workstation setup. I mean, all of you are gonna have something different. This conversation is with regard to a kitchen setup, kitchen chairs, and a laptop in terms of my device that I'm using, all right? So now let me check my notes to make sure where I am. Okay. So because I choose the laptop, I use it really for out of necessity, but also efficiency in terms of I can move it, mobility, gives me options, gives me choices. Once I want to start to make improvements, I started here. I've dealt with floor, I've dealt with knee. Another thing I forgot to mention, it's always good to be able to put a fist behind your knee. Okay, that distance is so important because it allows for blood flow to circulate down to your feet, through the arterial system and back up through the venous system. If you're one of these cross-legged, or if you're a sitter where you put your feet underneath you and you sit like on your legs, it's not really a good position or posture. Try to have them out in front of you. Now, I don't need a footrest only because of my height, but if you're vertically challenged, you might look at a footrest or a ream of copy paper or something. But if you can fit one fist behind your knee, that's so important because it allows that circulation to improve. So there's floor, knees, hips. Now, let's go forward. I need to now talk about reaching that home row, okay? But I'm trying to not do this, which is very challenging. Nose to screen, chin to screen. Trying to get that distance where I can fall naturally and see what I need to see, okay? Now, one of the bad things about laptops, okay, again, designed for portability, mobility, they are not designed for long-term use. But now, for whatever reason, the world has changed. We have to use them for long-term, never mind a Chromebook or a tablet. These are all devices that have so different dimensions that you as the human have to adapt and move physically in order to interact with the device. That's why I was saying we're trying to even the score. If it was 1-0, I'm hoping by now I might have scored a goal. So maybe we're getting close to 1-1, okay? So if I can put some kind of softening device, one of the things about laptops that I personally don't like is its hardened surface. So for upper extremity cumulative trauma disorder, typically it's in good old fashioned days, everybody and his brother used to get carpal tunnel when computers first entered. This would be mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Everybody was getting carpal tunnel or tendonitis. With laptops, what actually happens is because you have the hardened surface in the scroll bar area, your top of your wrist, which is the bottom of the tunnel, actually rests on a hardened surface. So obviously an option when we go over and pan over to the better setup would be to look for a wrist rest. But if you can't come up with a wrist rest, just go get a couple of face cloths. Try to be creative about how can you soften or deaden that contact force. Because again, unfortunately, it's not that 75-minute window or it's your new office. So we're trying to make it as comfortable as possible. So once you kind of get into that neutral position, you want your elbows to kind of rest. You're still trying to get a 90 degree. I still have a slight upward angle here, but it's not that bad. And I can't get perfect. I'm not at my cube. I'm not at my workstation in my office that's professionally set up. I'm at my kitchen table. So this is as good as I can get in terms of how I can get into a neutral position, okay? So if I needed to, and I needed a document holder, I could make shift with that. I forgot to get my towel dispenser, but maybe I could use the tulips. It's okay, Hannah, thank you though. If you want to bring it over, that's fine. Fresh tulips over at Sharper's Farm. you'd like to put an order in, there's no ad here, but anyway. But let's just say I'm in finance. I have a couple spreadsheets. I don't have my dual monitor like I used to have, and I could scroll. I'm sure that must be very frustrating for those that are used to dual monitor setups and move information, but I have to go off of documents. Whatever you can makeshift to change the orientation of the document from this plane, like a flat plane, you know, up into an upward position, okay, a vertical position instead of a horizontal position, which is tricky. Kind of doing it here on the fly. This stops this. Which again, micro movements, you can do this, but by 2:30, this starts to hurt. Next starts to get upper traps are hurting. This is getting old. If I can do this and have it right here, I can see my data or my information and I can enter it and I'm parallel. So that's my makeshift document holder, okay? So far we've talked about older furniture. How do we jerry-rig it so it's more comfortable? More so than comfort, how do we put ourselves into a neutral-based posture or position, okay? It really is 90, 90, 90. Come across, try to get as close to 90 degrees here as you can. Protect the hardened surfaces of the carpal tunnel. Rest and look at the screen. Here's where another problem is with the laptop, okay? Laptops are designed for smaller. Typically you want eye level or 10 degrees below. Well, I'm not gonna get that. So if I needed to, if I had a small ream of paper, or if I had an old phone book or something, I could put underneath my laptop and get my vision to improve. But then what happens? It's a ripple. It's like you drop a pebble across the pond or the lake and you can see the ripple go across. If you raise the height of this for your eyes, you've now changed the angle of your hands. So if possible, maybe you can just support your hands but tilt back the screen so you don't change your orientation of your neck in terms of its angle and notice the screen. And please try not to do the kyphotic lunge. This is what's going to get you over time. This humpback kind of thing is all because the upper part of the spine, the thoracic part of the spine, is being moved forward. The reason it's being moved forward is gravity, and our work is always in front of us. Our work is never behind us. It's always in front of us. So we're in a flexed position. We're in a flexed position. The disc space or the disc pressure wants to go out the back. Because you're flexed, it wants to go out the back. You need to raise neutral, middle, pelvic position, and then support yourself in an upright seated position as opposed to the Hunchback of Notre Dame, okay? So that's bad, got better, bad, better. Now we're gonna go over to what you could do potentially in terms of making some small tweaks. Amazon, Staples.com, Office.com, whatever. So I'm going to transition over to what I put together as kind of a, if we could do a really good office ergonomics, this is kind of what it would look like, but still be at home. Again, thank you to my mother for her card table. And that's all it is. It's her basic card table. I call this a spider cage. This is just basically a monitor riser. It's a spider cage only because it's webbed it's that plastic mesh. I've taken basically a standard flat screen monitor from downstairs, okay? But I've elevated it so that it's at a situation where it's kind of in front of me. Now, let's go back to the 90, 90, 90 rule. I need to pan down a little bit. So, 90 degrees at the ankles, 90 degrees at the knees, 90 degrees at the hips. I am now sitting in a chair that is vastly different. This is, I can't remember honestly if it's Office Max or Staples, I do not remember. That's my height adjustability. That's my lumbar adjustability. That's the pan or the tilt adjustability. Three main features of the chair. It's a mesh chair. I honestly think it was about $269, but I bought it a long time ago. The reason these chairs are good for temporary fixes and not for long-term solutions. People ask me all the time, Sean, just tell me what chair to get. I can't. It's like, do you want a Honda CR-V, or do you want a Toyota Corolla, or do you want a Toyota RAV? I can't tell you what car to buy. I can tell you what features you want ergonomically within what you purchase. You want height adjustability, lumbar adjustability. If armrests are present, they should be adjustable as well, okay? The one thing that is bad about these chairs, the reason they cost $269 or whatever it is, or $99, is the pneumatic device will fail very quickly because it's a cheap chair. It is what it is. Some of the higher manufacturers will make a better pneumatic device, which can last years and handle much more weight, okay? But for this purpose of this conversation, what I'm trying to point is the differential between a kitchen chair and basically an office computer task chair. When you sit, you have the 90-90-90 rule. If I was vertically challenged, which I don't know, I'm 6 foot, I guess I'm not vertically challenged, I would want to use a footrest. Again, the reason for the footrest is I'm looking to elevate the height of my knees so they are parallel to the height of my hips, okay? I can still get that here, 90-90. If I was shorter, I'd want that. And I also want my fists behind my knees for circulation. My hands come right across the top of the home row. In doing so, I have a wrist rest, okay? It's a gel pad, okay? So I'm protecting the carpal tunnel. I transition to my mouse. It would be great, that's not really expensive, to go wireless. A wireless keyboard, a wireless mouse. It gives you all types of flexibility, all types of mobility, and just options. My monitor is usually 16 to 23 inches away. It's at eye level or slightly below. If I don't have the option of using a regular flat screen monitor, I'll be right back, and I have to use my laptop, I can still interchange my laptop and just bring it over, but use my spider cage as my riser. Okay. This works, again, if I have a wireless keyboard and a wireless mouse. But now I've got myself positioned in a neutral position or posture. Okay. So this, again, is really, if that's the Pawtucket Red Sox, this is the Boston Red Sox. Well, I'm sorry, the Worcester Red Sox. Unbelievable. This is now the Boston Red Sox, okay? In terms of what we can do for our home workstation, absent you having your own office. Maybe you're in a situation where you have work remotely for another employer where you actually have your own office. That's awesome. Those of us who never do this or did this, it's very different. So we have to kind of be creative in the way we're trying to overcome some of the difficulties that this brings forth. Now, what I want to do is I want to go ahead a little bit in my presentation, because one of the things that comes up a lot now, and I got a really good email, we, the trust, received a really good email from one of our members, one of the school departments. This person works in the finance department, and because it's school-based, there was a lot of issues with regard to Chromebooks. There's a lot of issues with smaller devices, and a lot of questions or a conversation about glare, which I totally get, and I had to do a little bit, honestly, some more research and reading. What I learned is very recently, actually, because we're now in a forced shutdown, okay, on average, this is fact, not fiction. In 2019, the average person interfaced with a device that has a screen, for on average 9 to 10 hours per day. That means you interfaced with your computer, your laptop, your tablet, your Chromebook, your phone, or your television. Devices with screens, on average 9 to 10 hours per day. 2020, especially since the shutdown and the pandemic, it's 13 hours per day on average between all of those devices, and we all switch through them. The kids they're on their phone constantly. They go from their phone to their Chromebook to their tablet, back to their phone. Adults, for me, I'll only speak for me personally. I go from my laptop I will check my phone. My phone's with me all the time. And when at the end of the day, what I'll just do is I'll plop myself over on that couch and I'll watch my big flat screen TV at night. But I'm still looking at screens. So eye care has now become even more important. And it was very interesting in reading up on the fact about the 9 to 10 hours up to 13 hours per day. And some of the recommendations that are made is if you're in that situation and you're trying to offset this kind of constant barrage of either glare or a change in terms of your position and posture, your neck, your eye strain, some of the main things that are causing what's now called CVS. No, I don't mean the store that's being built right there on Route 2 at the intersection of 102 and Route 2 and Route 4. CVS was actually stands for Customer Value Store. That's the actual term for CVS. It's computer vision syndrome. This is now a new diagnosis. This is now a situation because we are now in excess or close to 13 hours of looking at some kind of digitized screen hitting our eyes. Okay, it's causing eye strain. CVS also causes us a dryness because when we blink, when we're looking at a screen, we actually don't even know that we're not fully blinking. It's a quick blink, but it's not a full blink. A full blink brings moisture to completely cover your eye, and that's why your eyes need that moisture. That's why a lot of times people will do fake tears. I know my wife, every morning my wife was a contacts wearer. And so she, first thing in the morning, will do the fake eye drops because her eyes drop out at the end of the day because of dryness. Well, due to increased computer screen time, we really need to be cognizant of that. So I had mentioned earlier about the 90-90-90 rule. Well, with CVS, computer vision syndrome, there's the 20-20-20 rule. And what that means is you have to be cognizant of it. Every 20 minutes of an interaction or interfacing with some type of screen, stop. Look 20 feet away from you. So fortunately for me, when I sit on that side, I can see either the picture of the 22nd lighthouse, or I can see Narragansett Town Beach or the towers or something. But every 20 minutes, I have to stop, look 20 feet away from me for 20 seconds. That gives your eye muscles a chance to stop from constricting and firing, to hold your vision to look at that device, to now in a relaxed mode to look away for 20 seconds, 20 feet, 20 seconds. That muscle, and it is a muscle, needs that relief, that rest. Then go back, okay? You need to be cognizant of your lighting. Before we kind of came on to do this, I was asking people about the background, the background and how much light, the glare coming from my door. So to offset that, you're going to need to adjust your brightness on your screen. You need to open and close your curtains according to the day, what's happening during the day. If you have dimmers, you need to adjust your dimmer in terms of where you are with your lighting so that you can get more control back from a fixed environment that was not designed to be your office. Okay, it was designed for you to live and not to work and live all at the same time. So the last piece of the puzzle in terms of this is our perfect setup is there has been a nice transition over time about the recognition of sitting for bouts of prolonged period of time and the negative aspects from a wellness perspective about static versus dynamic. When you sit statically for so long, blood flow decreases, edema also increases. You just get tightness in muscles, constriction, not elongation. So now a lot of people want to do the sit-stand option. So again, we all have different home environments. I don't know what your home environment is. For me, when I'm sick of sitting, I just transition over to like a breakfast bar or a raised surface area that's higher than my kitchen table. So again, with Hannah's assistance, we're gonna work our way over. And what I did is I went and got our little Mother's Day, when mom has to have her breakfast in bed on Mother's Day tray, that gets set up onto the breakfast nook, okay? My laptop is now placed here. If I need to, I can adjust my lighting, turn off, or I can turn it on and then dim it down. And I can dim it from this side. My only point is I have control over my environment. I transition from a seated position to a standing position. I made myself my own little very desk, okay? Again, if I had enough space or whatever, I might even build up a second layer where I would have my wireless mouse and my wireless keyboard adjacent to each other. If I can't, I can't. At least I can stand. I can look over at the stove and see it's 9:41. So I've been talking for almost 45 minutes. But basically, if I've been standing for 20, 25, 30 minutes and I want to sit, I can then transition back from a standing position to my seated position. So we started from scratch. We started with no support, standard table. We talked about the design of the furniture, how it's not designed for office, it's really designed for family, special, hopefully nice meals, especially at times today when you can appreciate the time you spend with your family because you're all together. But we recognize that the furniture is not conducive to what we need. We looked for homemade remedies. We have options considering if you want to go on Amazon or Office Max or any of the websites and have it delivered to your house. You can look at wireless keyboards, wireless mouse. You can look at spider cage monitor risers. You can look at wedged seated supports. Depending on your resources, you can go and buy an adjustable chair with all the proper features. All this is available because no one really knows where we're going. What's going to happen? What if we all go back to work and then the second wave hits and we all, so I guess we really do need to think that portability and comfort, but also ergonomically correct, all need to kind of come together when it's time to realize that I might not be working in the office the way I used to prior to March of 2020. So I also want a few more points that I want to bring up. One of them is stretching. I know through our wellness program, there have been very successful presentations about mobility and movement. And as a therapist and an ergonomist, I can't stress it enough. Those of you who've been through my back schools before, you'll know I frequently will talk about professional athletes and how the football game, is scheduled to start at 1 o'clock. But yet the pregame, if you're watching ESPN or whatever at 11 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours before the event, these professional athletes are warming up no less than 75 minutes before they actually work for 3 hours. Okay, we work for 8, 7, 8, 7.5, whatever it is. And do we actually warm up? Do we actually stop, even during the course of our work day, stop for a second and do some stretches, okay? One of the stretch cards that is available that can be, somehow we'll figure out how to get it to you if you don't already have it, is designed for office-based stretching situation. The pictures here, and I'll go over some of the stretches really quickly with you, can be done in either a seated position or standing. I actually would like you to stand to do the stretches because it gets you up. The minute you get up, your blood pressure will change, but your fluids will change. Everything will move and you'll just feel better from a static seated position to a standing dynamic position. But the first one is a very, very easy kind of wrist stretch because again, we've talked about deviation, smaller screens with laptops, negative slopes, okay? So if we're just gonna do a wrist extension, wrist flexion stretch, that's just a good way to do. You're gonna hold a stretch for 10 seconds. You don't bounce stretches, okay? It's not a disco. We're not gonna do any dancing. You just do a nice prolonged stretch and get that tissue to kind of elongate, okay? The next stretch is the prayer stretch. It's like, and for those of us, if you ever get to go back to church, I don't know, but it's the prayer stretch, which is again, elbows up, wrists are back. I just can't wait for Friday to happen. I'm praying for Friday. That's what this is all about, okay? Next one is your shoulder, the neck stretches. Lateral left, hold it for 10. Lateral right, hold it for 10. If you want to do some small circles, that's fine. Again, we're trying to transition from static to dynamic. Next stretch is our upper body stretch. So it's a trunk stretch to the left. You're going to elongate and hold. One side elongates, the other side shortens, back to neutral, and then you go into the other side. You're just trying to get that, especially that thoracic spine, to get up, extended, and move, okay? Next stretch is your cross shoulder stretch. which is arm straight, elbow on the outside your hand on the outside of the elbow, right across the front of your face. Again, this is really for your your rotator cuff, your upper shoulder, but don't bounce the stretch. That's not the way to do it. Hold it for a long 10 seconds, slowly release, and do the other side. The last two stretches, if you choose to do all those seated, which is fine, be nice if you could stand, but if you choose to sit, that's fine. Last two, I do need you to stand. Okay, you can change the angle. This is one of the most important stretches you can do. An extension stretch, okay? This is so important because of what I mentioned earlier. When Stanley's spine is gonna sit in a kyphotic position and the discs want to naturally migrate out the back, we have increased pressure. If we go to a standing kind of extension, back extension, hands on hips, and just slowly stretch to end point, don't bounce, they're going to slowly try to get those discs to migrate back in. It's just going to feel so much better because that's flexed, kyphotic, and this is open and extension. And the last stretch is because low back pain is primarily caused by tight hamstrings. Take your chair out, put your foot up on your chair, point the toe up. That's all the angle you need. That's about a 45-degree angle. For those of you, most of those people, as soon as you do this, you probably will already feel tightness behind your knee, okay? If you do, you really need to do some more stretching because what you need to do is just slowly bend forward and get your hamstring to loosen up. One of them, again, the number one causes for low back strain and low back pain is tight hamstrings. And this is the best stretch that you can do. Do not bounce this stretch. Hold it for a count of 10. If it hurts too much, back off. If you do it every day, you loosen it up. You'll actually be able to get higher and higher and get a better angle, okay? So stretches are so important. Mobility, get up, move. You know, every half hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, get up and do something. I'm sure you are probably doing that. I'm sure common sense has kicked in by now. For me, this has been a very interesting time only because I really did think it was going to be 2-3 weeks max. 2 months, maybe even 3 months before we can figure out what we're doing. And so for me, I miss you guys. I miss working with you personally. I miss driving to the meetings, but we'll get there. We'll do our Zoom meetings. But this has become my office workstation. And it's working for me. So what I would encourage you to do is, I don't know if there's been questions or anything sent to the chat room. If there aren't, that's fine. If there are, we have time to address, that's fine too. But you can always send me an email. I'm reachable email or phone. Maybe we can set up a personal assessment and do a Zoom meeting, just me and you, in terms of, we'll schedule it out. Obviously there's time here. We'll take a look at your workstation to see if there's been any improvement. I thank you for your time and attention. It's 10 out of 10 right about now, so I want to make sure if there are some questions I can address or how we'd like to proceed, whatever's best, I'm all for it.
So Sean, we do have a question from Gina, and she says, what are some other lower back stretches do you recommend?
Upper, lower?
Lower back stretches.
So, all right, so before, other than the extension stretch.
Yep.
Okay, well, now we're gonna get, now you have to get onto the floor, just to let you know, so we gotta move a little bit. I don't know if you have like a wellness pad or if you have a wellness mat. I usually like to stretch. I'll get flat on the floor. I will slowly go, grab my right knee, and slowly try to bring it towards my chest. I will not bounce or jerk it. If I need to, I'll interlock behind my thigh, and I'll get my other foot just to relax and try to pull that knee up to my chest, hold it, breathe through the stretch, relax, come off, and reciprocate to the other side. Usually, I find my right side is much tighter than my left side. It's just the way it is. We don't really have a balance per se. I don't know if that was helpful. Any other questions?
Good question. No other questions right now. So as I finish up, if you have a question, go ahead and type it in. But wanted to thank Sean. As we said, this is going to be sent out via link to the trust YouTube. Be available to watch again if you want to see those stretches again, or if you need to refresh yourself on the information. There's a question that just came in. It says, do you have all these stretches saved on a document? Go ahead, Sean, you can answer that.
I will work with membership services about trying to figure out how we can get these stretches out to everybody or whoever is requesting.
Yeah, I think we might be able to send it out attached to the email that has the link with the YouTube video. I think that would be a good idea. So we'll work to get those stretches out. We have these on the trust stretch cards, which are very valuable. So hopefully we can get that information out to you. Okay, well, we want to thank Sean today. He did a great job. And thank you everybody for joining. I thought this was very helpful. And again, if you have any other questions for Sean, or you want him to look at your office setup that you have at your house, he can set up a Zoom meeting with you. Just email him at sbaxter@ritrust.com, and he'll get back to you and set that up.
Excuse
so I
me.
want to thank everyone. Oh, good. Somebody's trying to talk. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's Cheryl. We have another question from Rosemary Florence.
Okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
She's asking, I'm struggling with plantar, I'm not sure how to say this.
Fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis.
Is there a position for my feet, or is this a hamstring issue?
Nope, the two separate diagnoses. So plantar fasciitis is the very bottom. I'll use my hand to explain as your foot. It's the very, as you know, it's the very bottom of your foot. It's like almost stepping on nails. To be very honest with you, one of the things, now this is the therapist in me speaking, kind of like the crossover from the ergonomist to the therapist. If it's an acute state or a flare-up, to be very honest with you, what I used to tell my patients back in the day is a 2-liter bottle of water. If you want to freeze it or whatever, you can get 1 or 2. I don't know if it's your right or left foot or both. I don't know. Let's just say it's one of your feet. But a frozen 2-liter bottle, believe it or not, place it on the floor and just slowly, as you're working, just keep your foot on it and slowly roll the palmar aspect of your foot right across that nice cool surface. Itis means inflammation of. So plantar fasciitis is inflammation of the fascia, which is the material on the very bottom of your foot. It's very painful. When it's in an acute state, you want ice. You definitely want to do ice. And then we would look at some stretches once that pain level comes down. So something cold, frozen, 2-liter soda, water, whatever on the ground, just roll your foot over it while you're working.
Great suggestion, Sean. Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other questions on mine. Cheryl, do you have any others that were sent to you?
No, there are no more questions.
Okay. Well, we're getting a lot of thank yous coming in, Sean. Now, obviously, a lot of people thought this was very beneficial. So.
I miss you guys. I miss talking to you. I really, that's been the hardest thing for me is I can't go to the meetings. I can't, I don't know, I'm a social person and I can't wait for some of the restrictions to be lifted and we can figure out our distance and our masks and all that stuff. But I really look forward to seeing all you guys again.
Okay, we want to thank Sean and thank you everybody for joining. And Cheryl, we can stop the recording now, and everybody have a great day and please stay well.